Okay, well, welcome back. This episode we're going to be continuing our discussion on religion. So I'm going to set the intention that you will just stick with us. Because this is a hard topic and some people just immediately close it off and say, I don't want to hear about religion. I don't want to hear about the Bible. I don't want to hear about Jesus or whatever, and so my intention is that you'll stay with us through this. I don't think it's going to go where you think it might go, so hang in there. So the first thing that I want to say is from our last video, I had, and still occasionally do have some problems with religion. I didn't get a lot of answers in Christianity once I started to learn and grow and things like that, and it just, a lot of things didn't make sense to me. If it does for you, that's great. But what I like to see is, and what I try to take myself back to and picture in my head, is the mountain. And some people may have heard this, and we're all heading up the same mountain. Some people may, throw the rope up and take their pickaxes and their shoes and their ropes and go straight up the mountain. Some people may follow the path up the mountain. It might take them, wherever. Some people may go all the way around in a big spiral until they get to the top of the mountain. Some people may go up a little bit, come back down, take a different path, come back down, go,
Sounds exhausting, man.
It is exhausting. Religion is exhausting. Spirituality is exhausting. They're all exhausting. But the point is that we're all trying to get to the top of the mountain, essentially. And I like to see that it is the same mountain, And one of the things that Ruth and I discuss a lot are the teachings that Jesus came here and taught as a master teacher, and the differences in how the Bible may portray that and how religion portrays that. So I know we were talking this morning, and I'm a healer, and that's been difficult for me to say because I didn't want people to look at me like I was crazy. I didn't want people to judge me and to think, oh, yeah, she's a healer, she thinks she has special powers or whatever. I've known I was a healer for a long time, and in fact I'm a third-generation healer. And as I said, it's difficult for me to say that, but I've realized and I've learned that it's not me. It's not. I'm just a vessel. I'm willing and able to be worked through, and my energy, vibration, whatever, it can be used through me to heal.
You're talking about energy healing.
Yeah, energy healing. And so what I want to say is, some people say, oh, well, that's, and I used the term witchcraft earlier, but what's a better term for that?
Pagan?
I don't know, but anyway, people will say, oh, that's not from the Bible. That's not Christianity. We don't heal people. It's not possible. Jesus did that because, he was the Son of God. But that's not true. And what I think is that Jesus came here and was fully man. He was also fully God. And the Bible does talk about that. And it also talks about that we are made in the image of God. And what I see is that Jesus was just like any of us. He was fully human, but he was also fully God, and so are we. And, Jesus, there's a story in the Bible, and I tried to look it up quickly and couldn't find it, but at any rate, he's going through a town, and there are just crowds of people around him, just hundreds of people. They're all around him, and I picture New York Times Square on New Year's Eve. It's that crowded. And at one point he stops and he says, someone touched me. And the disciples are like, well, no shit. There's 1,000 people here. Somebody obviously touched you. We're in a big crowd. And he said, no, healing energy, he doesn't say it that way, but he says, my healing went out from me. And it turns out there was a woman who had some kind of an illness or disease. I believe she was hemorrhaging or something of that nature and had been bleeding for a number of years. And she crawled up to Jesus behind him, and she didn't feel worthy of stopping him, so she touched his robe knowing that she'd be healed. And he felt that energy leave him. He felt that healing go out from him. And that's the same kind of thing that I feel when I'm healing others. I can feel it in my hands. I can feel it in my body. I've done readings where just last week where, I was giving a reading, and all of a sudden I got really bad pain in my head. And I looked at the woman and I said, are you having headaches on your right side? And she said, oh yeah, I've been having them for over a week. I was like, okay. And as soon as I acknowledged that, my head quit hurting. So we can feel those things. We can feel other people's energies, and we can through our energy and our vibrations, heal other people. But the message is that the things that Jesus did, he appeared as a spirit, and people saw him as a spirit. He did healings. I mean, he spit in the guy's eyes. He made mud out of his spit and healed the guy's sight,
Whatever works,
man. He did so many phenomenal things. And we can do the same thing. Not necessarily with mud and spit, but we can do the same thing.
Please.
But it's important, I think, to realize that there are many things that we can learn from Jesus, from maybe the Bible, and what in the stories that are in there. And so I know my struggle with religion itself has been the people that are trying to either push their religion or force their religion on others, and basically they're coming from a place of hate and not of love. They hate me because I'm a lesbian. They hate me because of whatever. I went to one church here locally, and I went in the bathroom, and I got the dirtiest looks, the worst comments from the people in the church. And I'm thinking, if I can't even go into the restroom of the church, and use the restroom without being judged by these people, this is not the place for me. And so I left that church, and haven't been back to it since. But I also haven't lost my faith. I haven't lost my spirituality. I've maintained the important things. And I think the biggest thing, like the Bible says, is faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. Thank you.
You have a lot to say. Can I chime in?
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Okay. Basically, one of the things that we're talking about here is, I think you and I agree on our interpretation of Jesus, and that he was one of several master teachers, incredibly advanced souls that to bodies reincarnated on earth to teach others, and one of the things that not the only one, but one of several. At least that's the way that I think we agree on that, right?
Right.
Okay. So I'm not a biblical scholar, okay, but from what I understand, there's quite a bit of difference between what is said to be Jesus' message and a lot of the rest of the stuff in the Bible and the messages that come from that. And so if you kind of try to separate the two a little bit, which is what I found interesting when I'm, what studying I have done, is that, Jesus himself has said basically that God is in all of us, that we all have these powers, that we all have these abilities, that he was not that special, that, we're here to learn to love one another, we're here to learn to treat each other well, we're here to learn to accept one another, not to judge one another, and all those good, that good stuff. But he kept saying, you're putting me, basically, if my understanding is correct, you're putting me up on this pedestal, and all I'm trying to do is get you to reach your potential. And that's kind of how I interpret it. And so, when we think about that in that way, then as far as I understand it, and I may be wrong, I might be saying something controversial, I probably am, anyway, just,
it's what we do.
It's what we do. But I think that, I don't think Jesus was here to start a new religion. I think Jesus was here to get people to recognize and use their spirituality and their human potential, their divine potential, to realize that we are all of God, we are all part of God, we are all experiencing for God, we're all in the image of God, and everybody is like that. And so I think it's important that we kind of understand that the Bible was written by human beings who were interpreting through the historical context and their own personal filters at the time, and kind of, so we really don't know what of that is absolute, accurate historical record and what is not. And so, of course, a lot of theologians have explored these ideas. But what I find interesting, that we were talking about earlier, is there was a lot of parts that were edited. There was a lot of stuff taken out of the biblical writings, and those things, a lot of these things had to do with, for example, strong spiritual women, or reincarnation and other types of things. So energy healing, which is what she was talking about, has been condemned by certain elements of Christianity and other major religions, and yet there it is, very clearly depicted in this tome, this book that people are claiming is the absolute Word of God. So I find that interesting.
And the Bible even says in several places, some of you will have gifts of prophecy. Some of you will have gifts of healing. Some of you will have all these different gifts. And it names them very clearly in the Bible. And so, I mean, when you're prophesying, or whatever that word is, when you're, doing that, or when you're healing, or when you're using these gifts, these are gifts that we're supposed to use. Yeah. We have these things. Everybody is psychic. And you just have to exercise that. You have to use it. You have to try to,
Intuitive.
Intuitive, right. And you have to make it stronger, But everybody can do that. And one of the other things that we've discussed in the past that what you just said brought up, the Old Testament is used so frequently to just bang people over the head, just beat the hell out of them with, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And then, the people who disagree say, oh, well, you can't eat shrimp and you can't do this. And, people are supposed to be stoned for X, Y, and Z. The Bible really became, especially the New Testament, the law of the times. Because the religion and the law back then were one. And so the Old Testament especially was more of a legal code used to control the populace. And because it was sacred, because it entailed religious stories and kind of the bringing down the past throughout the generations, it also encased the legal code.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I don't think people today see, because we have a separation of church and state.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I think is integral to remember, is that the Bible actually contains not only the spiritual and sacred laws, but the legal codes.
Yeah, I mean, the legal codes is basically saying that the laws come from God. This is at the time, and so you want people to, adhere to the law. Well, you want people to do what you want them to do if you're in power.
Right.
And so there's punishment set out if they don't. And the basic justification is that, you're a sinner, or that you're not being godly, or you're going against a religion, or you're unclean, or whatever it was. And that's basically to get people to not break the law for fear of the punishment. And so it makes sense as a legal code, but of course legal codes change over time, and now in this society we have at least technical separation of church and state. So we see the law as a separate thing from morality, when in reality they're very interconnected, and
very much so.
and they always have been.
Yeah.
So there was one other thing I wanted to say, and I don't remember what the hell it was. So I guess if it's important, it'll come up.
Okay.
Anything about you?
Well, we're running out of time, so
as usual.
Yeah. We may do another episode on religion. And again, this is if you've stayed with us, as was my intention in the beginning. Thank you very much.
And if you have specific questions, that we can address, let us know.
Yeah.
If this brings up some questions for you, let us know. We're happy to talk about it.
And like I said in the beginning, you don't have to believe what we believe.
Mm-mm.
You don't have to believe, what somebody else believes, your pastor, your friends, your mom, whatever. All we're asking you to do is think about it. Just, if it doesn't mesh with you, doesn't resonate with you, totally okay.
Toss it
But
out.
yeah, just toss it out. We toss things out all the time. But thank you for listening this far, because I think it's important to start a discussion of religion and of spirituality and of those things, because as I believe, we are going up the same mountain. And sometimes we'll cross paths and we can help each other. And ultimately, that's the goal.
And I agree. I think it's really crucial right now. We're in the middle of almost a worldwide discussion of homosexuality right now, and gender and transgender, and I think that there's been a taboo almost on discussing religion's role in the condemnation. And I know we're running out of time, but basically I think it's important that we have a dialogue, that we don't shut each other down, that we have a dialogue. So again, we're not saying
civil discussion.
Yeah, a really deep discussion rather than a big old argument or fight. So
gotta go.
Sayonara.